would be before God.
Thank you. Welcome, Brother Sam, Brother Mafole, and Brother Pigeon. Thank you. Our topic today focuses on Nkrumah's call for Africa to have a continental diplomatic call. So let me formally welcome you warmly towards an engaging session. So I'd like to welcome you all. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, including those who will join us on YouTube as we share our sessions on YouTube. So it's a pleasure to welcome you all. Welcome, Sister Tapua. It's a welcome to welcome you all to today's session. So most of us are online, as you know, our meetings are online. So we are thrilled to have you. You know that our Saturdays are a time for relaxation, but also for growth, for connection, and for new ideas. And that's what CSG has been doing. And so in the next 2 hours, that's what we aim to achieve. Today we will discuss the African Continental Diplomatic Corps, which is a vital part of our foreign policy. It's an opportunity for us to learn, share perspectives, and engage in meaningful conversations. Whether you are here to gain knowledge, network, or contribute your insights, your presence makes this session special. So before we dive in, let's take a moment to appreciate the efforts each of you have made to be here. Weekends are precious, very precious. So many activities happening, sometimes even within our own families. That makes it difficult for us to attend sessions on Saturdays, but you've made it. And the fact that you have chosen to spend this time with us is truly valued. So we shall hear from, the first session will be that we shall hear from Brother Pigeon, I believe, and then we will hear from Brother Mafole, both of whom have prepared something for us. And then we'll have an interactive session. It's like a Q&A. And then we will end with closing remarks and next steps. In the middle of the 2 hours that we normally meet, we shall play the African anthem, preferably in both Swahili and English. We encourage you all to participate actively, ask questions, and connect with fellow attendees, but we all here know ourselves. So those who join in on YouTube, we encourage them to get in touch with us. So without further ado, let's make the most of this time together. Welcome once again, Sister Tapua, Brother Sam, Brother Mafole, Brother Pigeon, and let's get started. Thank you. So I believe we will start with Brother Pigeon.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Brother Kwame, and greetings to all of you. Thank you very much once again for your time. Brother Kwame has actually taken that time to thank you for your time. And to those who are engaging us on YouTube, we've been seeing comments, people engaging and liking our discussions on YouTube. Really want to also appreciate them.
You're distracted, brother. Brother Pigeon has fallen out. So let's, Brother Mafole, Brother Pigeon has dropped out. Are you able to start your session for us until Brother Pigeon rejoins us? If Brother Mafole is not ready, I will share a few thoughts. Brother Mafole, are you ready?
Not
So,
quite.
so
Good evening.
whilst
Good
you're
evening.
waiting, yes, Brother Mafole, are you ready to share your
Good evening,
thoughts on?
brothers and
Yes,
Sister Tapua,
thank you.
Brother Sam and Brother Kwame. No, I'm not quite ready. I've been discussing with Brother Pigbin that I had requested some material to be shared in preparation for the presentation I had offered to make, but that didn't happen, and I've only just come back myself I was out of circulation the whole of the day from last night.
Okay.
And I think it would be a waste of time to try and share what I intended to share with people, having had some preparations and maybe with some reflections on the material.
Okay.
And my comments really are as I made on Thursday, that I think we want to spend more time, now that we've discussed the history, we've discussed the theories. I think we want to spend more time working on focusing on ourselves, because it is only when we ourselves transform and when we know each other, when we work on recovering our identities and our purposes of life, that we are able to unite, that we are able to talk more meaningfully about the actions that we want to take moving forward. But I think let me defer to Brother Pigbin again, because I think he's back.
Yes. So, okay, Brother Mafole, before I move back to Brother Pigeon, who is with us. So he hasn't dropped out again. So, Brother Mafole, so if we focus on your point for a moment about self-identity, the question then becomes, what are your views on the African Continental Diplomatic Corps in terms of identity? How can we begin to engage in common foreign policy and diplomacy if we do not know ourselves, if we do not understand ourselves? So how should the how should the diplomatic service of the current 55 African nations, how can they understand who they are so that they can come together to begin to talk in terms of having a common foreign policy and diplomacy? Do you have any thoughts on that, please?
Yes, I do. I actually attended the parliamentary session which we were invited to, was it on Wednesday or Tuesday? And it continues to worry me, because we seem to have, even at that level, to have steered away from the greater picture being our socio-economic development and peace. Most of the time, the speakers, I left when when the session was interrupted by some hackers, and then I thought, this may not be good. But our focus seems to be on the Western democracy, the democracy that we have been handed down by our colonizers. And it has purposes. They handed us that democracy, which they handed to their own people prior to us, for a purpose of keeping them away from things that they say matter. And we are very intent on that democracy. We want to protect that democracy. We hardly talk about our people. We want democracy because we say we want to be inclusive and united. But a contradiction occurs. We have a situation now of the Sahel, where Captain Traore is focusing on developing his people, looking at the interests, promoting the interests of the people of Burkina Faso. But our people say they have suspended them, they will not recognize them until there's this Western democracy there, which means the democracy is useful to us even when it does not do anything for our people. I'm not saying I want to promote coups or things like those, but I think the big picture is the socio-economic development of all of us. And until we recover our own identity, until we know why we exist, until we recover our own Ubuntu, where Ubuntu is about me and you. I am because you are. And I value you as much as I value myself. Now, when I don't, and I focus on these other peripheral things, I personally get lost myself. I don't see how much we have to find a way of talking with our leaders that we cannot move forward in that type of attitudes where our focus is only how we get into positions and not the best interest of our people. So until we recover our identity, I don't see what purpose our unification will serve, because we cannot just be united with no purpose. So without going to too much length, Brother Kwame and all my other brothers and sisters, that's my take. I think we need to refocus where the big goal is and be guided by it, and should not allow ourselves to steer away from the ultimate purpose. Thank you.
So, Brother Mafole, so just keeping our focus on what you've just said, if the African Diplomatic Corps were listening to you right now, what would you tell them? What will you tell them in terms of self-identity, in terms of what they need to do? Because what we are doing is part of that. We are trying to reach out to our people, to get our people to understand certain fundamental facts. And you have touched on a very important part of unification, which is the need for us to know who we are, and not to pursue tools that are useless to us. So if they were listening to you right now, and we don't know who will be listening to this video, this YouTube video that you are part of today, what would you say to them if they were seated in front of you?
Let me quote one of our ancestors, a Chief Muhlomi, who helped the founder of the Basotho Nation to heal. And the young man, before he could found the Basotho Nation, was in a situation like ours. He was spear-led. For instance, we are told somebody milked his cow without his permission, and he killed the fellow. And yet fortunately he had a big dream, a dream of being a great leader of a powerful nation. And his elders, because he shared the dream with his elders, and his elders advised him, yeah, we appreciate your great dream, your big dream, but you cannot achieve it in the state in which you are, with the type of behavior and attitude, the mindset that you have. And some of the important things to note is that they did not lecture to him. They advised him to go to somebody who was proficient in healing and in mentoring. And he went there and he was helped and transformed. And then he was able to found this nation. And my advice to our current leaders would be, as I said, we need to focus on ourselves, on transforming ourselves, healing from
colonial. Brother Mafole, if I may interject, Not so much to our leaders. What I want you to tell us, the leaders are not seated in front of you. It's the diplomatic corps, those who engage in African diplomacy. Those are the people seated in front of you, not the presidents, not the prime ministers, but those who go and represent us
I'm
in the
also talking
embassies.
about them,
So
brother.
those are the ones I want you to speak to.
Yes, I'm talking about them and ourselves. I'm only saying that what I can give as an example of what is currently happening. I saw on in the meeting of the parliamentarians at the beginning of the week, and I'm saying that what we need to do, we who may form the diplomatic corps, is for ourselves to focus on ourselves, transform, because if we are going to be working on our relationships, what type of relationships will we be working on? Those relationships should be directed towards the bigger goal, that of socio-economic development of ourselves and our people. So this is precisely what I'm saying, and I'm referring this to all of us. I only talked about the meeting of the parliamentarians because it is something that is recorded. It is something that we can point at. Okay. So that we should not allow ourselves to be like that, even as we develop the diplomatic corps.
So as our focus today is on foreign policy and diplomacy, what do you have specifically to say about that?
I cannot be more specific than I have been, because what purpose will the diplomacy
so Brother Mafole, what I'm saying, for instance, is assuming that we have that self-identity, as you are saying we should have, how will our relating to the outside world look like? You understand? If we are where you want us to be, how would that change foreign policy and diplomacy? And then how will that mean that we are pursuing the socioeconomic development that you have referred to?
What would happen is, once we are clear on our identity, we know ourselves, then we'll be clear on the ultimate purpose that we are relating for, and it's not for me to say what the particular diplomats will do, but once we have recovered our identity, it will be clear to everybody what direction we need to be taking. So my emphasis is only on recovering the identity, not to tell people what I expect them to do when they are there. When they are there, their views they will be seeing, their vision will be much clearer than at the present moment. Which is why I was giving that example that the man who founded the Basotho nation did not know exactly what he was going to do, but he was not told what to do. His mentor did not tell him what to do. For instance, when the cannibals killed and ate his grandfather, he forgave them and gave them seed, animals, and land, and integrated them into his nation. But that was not what Mutlomi had instructed him to do. Because of his new identity, his new mindset, it became clear to him that that is the way he ought to go, to respond to the challenges, the reasons, the core reasons why the cannibals would eat other people. So that is the type of mindset that would be at, where we would be considerate of others.
So to then round up your wonderful presentation to us. So just one example. I know you are not telling them what to do, but how do you think they would handle, for example, how would you think if we understand who we are, how would we handle the current genocide going on in Gaza, for instance? How would African diplomats handle that? Because I am not sure that currently that African diplomats, I'm not sure that they've even addressed the matter. I don't know if the EU has made a statement on in terms of our foreign policy towards Palestine and Israel. I'm not sure that maybe somebody has said the EU make a statement, but even if the EU has said anything, not sure if that reflects the position of the 55 African nations. And even if they have, I am not sure that our voice, the Black voice, the African voice on this matter, and here I mean Africans as the mothers and fathers of everyone on this planet. When your children are misbehaving, you call them to heal. You tell them to stop what they are doing as a parent. And Africa as a parent, I have not heard much. I have not heard the parental voice on this matter. Maybe sometimes your parents speak and the children sound the voice of their parents because they are busy fighting and so on. Whatever it is, my question is, if the African nation is in place and we understand who we are, what would you think, not what we will do, but what do you think, how do you think we would relate to genocide on our continent? Because Israel is on the African continent. Many people don't understand that Palestine and Israel are on the African continental belt. They lie on the continent. Some people don't understand that because the term Middle East, which was a trading term, has been used to confuse a lot of people on where these peoples or these lands are. So my question is, how do you think we would relate? How would African foreign policy and diplomacy, what would it say about genocide anywhere in the world? You know, we know it happened amongst ourselves in Rwanda, but how would we what would we say? How would we relate? Thank you.
Well, I don't think that anybody who is mentally healthy would condone genocides of the Palestinians or the Palestinians, nor of Hitler on the Jews. But the challenge is that I see, we never took the trouble to help the Jews to heal from the genocide. We never took the trouble to help the Germans to heal from their mental sickness that caused them to carry out genocide. I think what Africa or Africans would do is to look at process more than just what to say about the genocide, but about the process that both parties need to be taken, or stakeholders need to be taken through, so that they can see different, they can see each other, they can see themselves and each other with new eyes and relate differently. And that relationship would be determined by them. One of the things that science researchers have found is that we talk about reconciliation, we talk about forgiveness. But the mistake that we make is, as the scientists found out, is that we want to legislate those. And legislating those causes problems. In the example that I gave of the founder of the Basotho Nation, as I said, his mentor did not instruct him to forgive people. It came spontaneously because he was transformed into that state of being. And once we get into that state of being, we'll be able to deal with our life challenges. The situation in Gaza, the situation between Israel and Gaza is a life challenge. It's a life challenge that requires that we should ask first who want to intervene. We should transform and rise to a level of consciousness and the proficiency to be able to intervene there and have those people to rise to a level where they will be able to meet each other halfway and even rise above that. So it is a question of process. So it may not be easy right here to let's remember how long these people took to put us where we are. The colonizers, for instance, they did not just start there. They started first by slavery, then they changed, they moved into colonization, then they said they removed the chains. Then they moved on, they said they were giving us independence, as if we had been dependent when it was them who were dependent on us. So it needs processes that will take us to a level where we will begin to see things different from the way we see things now. So it's about process, Brother Kwame.
So, brother, you said a lot of things, and you made a few comments. So if I can just take one. So what you're saying is that we shouldn't talk to them, but we should offer them a way for them because the Jews did not, they were not given the means to heal from what happened to them in the Second World War, because they didn't have the opportunity to heal. They are visiting the same kind of thing on the Palestinians. So is it fair to say then that we have a role to play as Africans? And that means that perhaps we should be contacting the two parties and the UN and offering a program of healing and saying that this is what needs to happen in order for the problem to be resolved. Yes, there can be political solutions, but the inner solution of who they are, to understand that the two groups are from the same father, historically, that these are, if you like, half brothers and one brother is murdering the other brother's children. When the children of one brother, I think we are all aware that I'm talking about Isaac and Ishmael. Ishmael being the father of the Arabs, and Isaac being the father of the Jews. They are all the sons of Abraham, one father, and yet this is killing this one, this is killing the other one. So maybe they don't know who they are. So, Brother Afole, is it fair to say that we should take the program to them?
I think you are understanding me, Brother Kwame. But we should embrace the process ourselves first.
But as we are talking about African diplomacy today and foreign policy, diplomatic core, yeah, if we just focus on that for a moment, yes, I agree with you. We need to do that ourselves. But as we are focusing on that, then you are saying that the diplomatic corps must understand who they are. And then if they had done so, then they would know that this is what they need to do with respect to genocide on the continent. Yeah?
Yes, sir. You've understood me.
Okay. Thank you, brother, very much. So, Brother Mafole, thank you for your question and answer session. It was meant to be a presentation, but it's become a question and answer session, which I think is okay.
Yeah, I was twisted into it.
It's okay.
To do it orally.
It's fine, brother. It's okay. Sometimes, as lecturers, as you know, our notes get lost. The other day, my electronic board stopped working. I had prepared a whole lesson. In fact, I was taking the lesson of another colleague, and he sent me his whole slide for the whole lesson, and my electronic board wasn't working. So what did I have to do? I had to basically do the presentation without the slides and teach.
Definitely.
Yeah, so that happens, my brother. It's okay. Brother, are you ready to do your presentation? If not, then I'll say a few words.
I'm ready.
Okay. So, Brother Pigeon, are you Are you doing a slides presentation, or you're just going to oral presentation?
It's a document, a brief document.
Yeah, but you need to learn how to use PowerPoint, yeah, instead of a document, yeah, to do presentations. Okay. So thank you, Brother Pigeon. Please proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, and greetings to all of you. Thank you, Elder Mafole. I know Brother Kwame has fixed the interpretation.
Can you just hold on a sec? Brother Pigeon, can you just hold on a sec, please? Let me welcome Sister Ida, Sister Shaza, and then Sister Tapua has been trying to join, but I think the internet is struggling. So yes, Brother Pigeon, thank you. Go straight to the presentation, Brother Pigeon. No need to welcome anyone. Go straight to the presentation. Thank you.
It seems Sister Ida hand is up. I don't know why. Or should I go on first?
No, a hand is not up. Sister Shaza always has a fist. That Shaza always has her fists up. Sister Ida, did you want to say something?
I did, because I thought that.
Please proceed.
Thank you. I thought that the conversation between you and Brother Mafoli was interesting, but I didn't know why you were just talking about Gaza when there were enough other almost I don't know whether to say almost genocides or different genocides.
I can answer that, sister. Because we are on African Diplomatic Corps and foreign policy. This topic.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Because there are other African catastrophes that have happened in recent times.
Yes, Ida, that is
and yet
true.
you're I know Gaza is
Sister Ida, that is true. I'm not cutting it, that is true. But we have a whole year of Saturday discussions. When Africa is united, it has to have a common foreign policy and diplomatic corps.
Then it should include other Africans as well.
Yes, so
it's what I'm trying to say.
Yes, so what we are saying is that we are looking at, if the Africa was united, what would be its foreign policy? That was an example of what would we say. And Brother Mafolo is saying it's not so much what we say, but what we do. So I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying that the catastrophes of Africa are internal. Those are internal issues. And we've dealt with a few of them already on our Saturdays. Today is foreign policy. And when we say foreign policy, as CSG, the issues of Kenya for us are not foreign policy. They are internal African issues either. The issues of Western Sahara are not foreign policy. In the current setup, you see,
okay, how about Congo or Sudan?
Yeah, precisely.
They are foreign policies.
No, they are not. Not within Africa. You see, within Africa, Congo is not a foreign policy, is it?
Its war is a foreign policy because it's the foreigners who are perpetuating the war. So it is a foreign policy.
So what would African diplomats do about that?
Well, because they do nothing at any of our wars. That's why we get no reaction.
So I'm asking you, if Africa was united and foreigners are bringing the war into Africa, what would you want us to do? So can you comment on that? Since you've
yes, I'd like them to speak
so let's
up.
Let's
so
see
I don't think it's right of CSG to be just talking about foreign policy for Gaza when the foreign policy should be right across the board. If we were united, it will be right across the board.
I'm not sure what you are complaining about.
When we're united.
Sister Ida, I'm not sure what you are complaining about. I use an example.
If you're not sure, I'll just shut up.
No. If you have a different example, we can use that. So I can.
But I've tried to bring in a different example that you cannot just be talking about one part of Africa when there are other parts of Africa that are experiencing. They may not be experiencing bombardments like Gaza is, and I'm very strong on I'm very against what is going on in Israel.
But Israel is not part of Africa. It may be on the African continent.
You just told us that it is on the African continent. You can't have it both ways.
But it's a different nation.
I rest. I have nothing more.
I don't know if I'm making sense. Israel.
No,
if we unite Africa, Israel is not going to be part of the African nation.
May
Israel
I
is not
intervene,
Israel.
please, Brother Kwame?
Sorry, hold on. Let me make my point. Israel will not be part of the African nation. So it is foreign to us. And by the way, I just use that as an example. I'm happy for us to use, for example, the American intervention in the Congo as in terms of what they did recently in meeting the parties and striking a deal, and say that they are responsible for the wars in Congo anyway. So then African diplomats should speak on the question of how the Chinese and the Americans are supplying weapons to the rebel groups who are causing perpetual war in Congo. Of course, we can do that. But I used the example that I wanted. I don't know why that is a problem. If there are other examples, yes, we can talk about them. Anyway, Brother Glenroy, you wanted to say something. So anyway, Brother Mafole, Brother Mafole, let's come. Brother Pidgey, before you come in, Brother Mafole, Sister Ida is saying, let's look at the Congo as an example, because the wars are being caused by external agencies. Therefore, in that sense, what would you say in terms of what you've told us about what we should do in terms of DRC? Thank you.
I would say let's use Sister Ida. I think what we were saying was taking that as an example, but the approach would be the same. Would look at the key stakeholders in the Congo and take and request them to be taken through the processes, the very same processes, and they would see differently at the end of the processes. Whether it is there or it is in Sudan, the processes would still be the same, even though they are within us. So it's not like we were focusing on Gaza and Israel. Yeah. I think that's a little bit that I wanted to say.
Okay, so the process will be the same for every issue as you're saying, yeah? Whatever example.
The same for me and Brother Kwame, the same for me and Sister Ida.
Okay, so brother, before Brother Pigeon comes in and Brother Mafole, would you how would you say that will help our socioeconomic development? Because at the end of the day, independence was not about that. The independence movement was a political movement, and it was a political movement in the sense that they had imposed themselves on us without our permission. The colonial governments, nobody asked us if we wanted them. They just imposed themselves on us. So the independence movement was a political movement, but the Pan-African fathers were very clear that the purpose of the political movements was so that we can move to the next stage, which is economic independence. And I think that is where the point you made is critical. In the economic sphere, they were dependent on us. We were not dependent on them because they wanted our resources. So in that sense, what we need, independence in that sense means that we then get control of our own resources rather than they controlling the resources. So I just thought I would clarify that, because if in terms of the way we put it, if we don't clarify that, we will think that when our parents were fighting for independence, that they were fighting for something that wasn't there. I don't know if I'm making sense. The settler community, they settle like settler colonialism in parts of our continent, and the colonial governments in other parts, that was concrete, that was real. The government of England, for instance, the colonial government, they lived in Accra, for instance. They have their secretariat or the civil service in Accra. They lived there. They had their houses there, and we wanted them to leave. That was the independence we were talking about. Yeah. So I think we need to clarify the two. When we are talking about independence in that sense, we're talking about political independence, not economic independence. But as Nkrumah has made clear, economic independence was meant to be the next stage. And we've had this discussion before. And we say that nobody gave us independence. People keep saying that they gave us independence. We fought for it. As the South Africans, they had to go to war. They may not have got what they want. As the Zimbabweans, they had to go to the bush and fight. And in parts of Africa, there was civil war. In Nigeria, for instance, and people keep saying they gave us independence. Nobody gave us independence. Please. So I think we need to also reflect the history of what happened. But my final comments before Brother Pigeon continues. Thank you.
No, I think that you said enough, Brother Kwame. What we actually need now is to move to the next stage, to move to freedom and interdependence, because independence is a non-starter.
Okay. Yeah, but Mafolo, I hope you will work with us. I think we should take your program to Ghana. I think so. Brother Pigeon, we need to take this program to Ghana. Because I think we need it, especially in the light of unification. When our languages do not, our languages are exclusive when it comes to who a nation is. The Ga nation is the Ga nation. The Ever nation is the Ever nation. The Luo nation is the Luo nation. In the Luo nation, if you are a Zulu, you can't be part of it. That is our language. So we need healing from that, brother Mafolo. But we'll need your help. Let's move to Brother Pigeon. Brother Pigeon, please proceed. Why did you remove your presentation from the screen, brother?
No,
what was the need of that?
I'm thinking based on time, I might just have to comment because people may have to have still time to come.
Brother, we have 1 hour. Conclude your presentation and finish, and we'll have a discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So mine is just a very small brief on this Africa Continental Diplomatic Corps. Just for information, Brother Kwame, is there an existing body of such currently under AU? None.
Is there an existing what?
Is there an existing body called Africa Continental Diplomatic Corps?
That's a good question. You continue. I'll come back to you on that.
Now, my presentation will be to explore the concept of that Africa Continental Diplomatic Corps, which is ACDC, as a mechanism for advancing African unity, the sovereignty and global influence. The reason why we need Continental Diplomatic Corps is for global influence. How do we move in unity in global influence? And I'll be rooting this on Nkrumah's philosophy, which is consciousness a bit. Now, the context is in consciousness, Nkrumah advocates for synthesis of African traditional values, Islamic and Euro-Christian influences, and socialist principle to foster unified self-reliant Africa. That's the approach. So the ACDC then aligns this vision with the collective action to combat neocolonialism and promote continental integration. So here, the structure will, of course, cover things like the advantages. That's where I want to focus on. The advantages, the challenges, and a clarion call for establishing this ACDC. I'm not sure if it exists, and the support for empirical data as Nkrumah's ideological framework. So I'm basing it a bit on Nkrumah's thoughts, because Nkrumah actually spoke of this in 1960.
Brother Pigeon.
Yes.
Slow down, please. Slow down. You're speaking too fast. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So the concept of Africa Continental Diplomatic Corps, the definition is that this will be a unified diplomatic body. That's what you're talking about. A unified diplomatic body. And then represent all the so-called 54 states or Africa Union members. And its task will be to coordinate foreign policies, promote collective interests, and amplify African voice in global affairs. Those are the key targets why we need a diplomatic corps for a coordinated foreign policy. And Nkrumah talked about this in 1963 when he proposed the ministers to set up committee form. And one of the committees set up is the Committee for Foreign Affairs or Policy. And this is what actually Africa Continental Diplomatic Corps should be working on. The historical context, as I've said, Nkrumah leadership in the founding the OAU in 1963, which is, of course, you know, is AU now, was laying a groundwork for a collective diplomacy. In fact, AU ought to be a diplomatic central organization to coordinate diplomatic issues. Now, when Nkrumah held the 1958 All African People's Conference and the Conference of Independent African States in Accra, he demonstrated the effort at a unified diplomatic engagement. So it brought everybody here. How do we come together to come up with a framework or a common policy on how we are going to struggle? So he actually went extra mile even to try it by bringing everybody together for a conversation so that you walk out of this meeting with a common unity or a common goal. The objective here will be actually to root it to consciousness a bit and our main call of African unity by creating a centralized diplomatic entity and then prioritize African interests over external influences. And also in that process, we foster economic, political, and our cultural sovereignty as a people of Africa. Now, I'll look at the advantages a bit, why we need this. The reason why there's need for necessity to have this Africa Continental Diplomatic Corps is for a unified voice in global affairs. So Kwame was just mentioning what happened between Congo and the USA. Look at even what happened between those 5 countries that went to America. Or even look at what sometimes happens when the whole 57 presidents are going to sit in China for a China-Russia, China-Africa conference or a Russia-Africa conference or a French-Africa conference, like what I have heard. President Ruto is organizing the next year, French-Africa conference will be held in Kenya. And all presidents will be seated there. So as the benefit of this is that when you have a single diplomatic corps, it will amplify Africa's influence in international organizations, whether it is the UN, whether it's WTO, whether it's WHO, whether it's International Monetary Fund, whether it is what you call Security Council or anything else. At least it amplify that because we are moving with one front. Empirical evidence is like you see, Africa with 55 countries hold almost 28% of the UN General Assembly votes. But we lack a cohesive strategy. We don't even have we are not in the Security Council. I know they're saying that they are going to admit AU in the Security Council. So even if you look at 2017 UN report, it noted that Africa's fragmented diplomatic efforts actually weakened Africa's negotiation power on issues like even trade engagement or trade agreements. I'll tell you, for example, Kenya goes to make a trade agreement with Russia, a trade agreement maybe not even Russia, with the EU. EU has a common policy in terms of how they attract their trade policies and anything else. But when Kenya moves alone, it doesn't make any benefit out of that negotiation. Nkrumah, in his vision in 1963 on the AU speech, he actually emphasized that nothing will be of avail except the unified act of a united Africa. A unified diplomatic corps will actually embody that principle, a united Africa. It will ensure that Africa speaks with one voice outside there. The next advantage is on economic leverages and resources protection. Like now, how do we protect our resources in Congo and those other resources we have? Now, this HCDC will actually negotiate trade agreements and resource contracts collectively. And this will reduce actual exploitation by foreign powers. If you look, for example, the statistics, 30% of global mineral reserves are in Africa and 10% of oil reserves. Yet, only 5% of global foreign direct investment is what we receive. And this is due to fragmented negotiations. This is actually embodied by the report of Africa Development Bank in 2023. Now, how do we link this with consciousness? Even if you look at the Nkrumah's theory or thought in the neocolonialism, the last stage of imperialism, Nkrumah proposed that foreign capital often impoverishes Africa by exploiting resources without equitable return. So an SCDC could actually counter this by enforcing a collective bargain. So there's need for us to have that collective bargain. The next advantage is in the conflict resolution or regional stability. Like now what you're doing, and I'm glad that you mentioned that now people go to America to make a negotiation for Africa. And in that trade agreement, I've just realized that America is going to access minerals in Congo worth almost $2 trillion. So if we could have this ACDC, then we could have a centralized diplomatic corps that could actually mediate intra-African conflict. And this could reduce reliance on external mediators, like the UN or even former colonial powers. The data shows that AU has mediated, of course, some conflicts in Africa, Burundi, Zimbabwe, the ERC, with almost 60% success. But if we could have an ACDC, a dedicated body on this, we could have achieved a lot of this. Constitution also emphasizes collective decision-making that is rooted on African values. So if we have ACDC, even in our negotiation, it will be rooted on our interests as a people, and it will be based on what we Africans want. So the cultural and ideological unity is the next benefit. So for us even to promote this Pan-Africanism, Ubuntu, and all these, or cultural pride, or even ideological cohesion, that ACDC will be of very great importance. Like, for example, we mentioned before, the 1958 All-African Congress that was organized by Nkrumah. Actually, it united nationalist organization, over 62 of them. And these were demonstrating the power of collective cultural identity as a people. So Nkrumah's advocate for that synthesis of tradition with modern ideology is actually to help us reclaim our cultural identity. And this can be embodied in our diplomatic engagement. But there are challenges. For example, some member states may resist this. Some member states may feel that they want their own autonomy in terms of their diplomatic organization or diplomatic view. Or some people might fear to lose their national sovereignty. And you see that there was another argument of the AU in 2007. Nkrumah proposed this in 1963 about unified Africa. Then in 2007, there was a summit in Accra. And some resisted the United States of Africa, where leaders like Gaddafi were trying to push for that because of their own fear. But Nkrumah in Africa Must Unite also reminds us that sovereignty could be preserved within federal structures where states only retain autonomy except in defined collective areas like foreign policies, foreign military, foreign government, and something like that. But there's also another challenge on resource and capability constraints. So things like financial or human resource limitation could hinder the effectiveness. Because you realize, for example, the AU budget by 2024 was around $654 million. But 60% of that budget was actually coming from external donors. So this even indicates dependency on the AU itself. And only 10 out of 54 AU member states had a diplomatic training institute. So we still go back to Nkrumah's call for self-reliance. And ACDC could actually pull all resources, reduce the cost, and establish a continental diplomatic even academy, so that you can build the capacity of those diplomats. There's issues with political issues and even the ideological challenges or divisions, where people have differing political systems, and others are also aligned with either the Cold War eras, like the Monrovia and Casablanca group. They still persist. But Nkrumah's Pan-African radical call was actually close to the moderate states. And this led to diplomatic tensions. Nkrumah never thought that we should exist like this. So we still have to emphasize on how we reconcile our ideological differences through dialogue, and this could be guided by ACDC in fostering that inclusive diplomacy. So the issue is also neocolonial influences. So I was saying there also issue the neocolonial interference. You know how, of course, the neocolonials don't want us to unite. So we have evidence that even the classified documents reveal that US was involved in Nkrumah's overthrow, you know that. And it was citing his anti-colonial stance. But Nkrumah still warned us, and we must remember, in his book, Neocolonialism, that neocolonialism is the last stage of imperialism. And he urges that Africans must resist that external control through unity. So our unity in a diplomatic front is very important. Now, clarion call is very simple. We call for a revolutionary ideology that unites African traditional values with modern socialist principles to achieve what we call a true emancipation. Nkrumah stated, our economic advancement demand the end of colonialism.
Brother Pigeon, you are muted. Brother Pigeon, you are muted.
Sorry, I'm back. Sorry for that, I'm back. So I'm saying that we must actually try to defeat neo-colonialism and colonialism. But how do we do it? It's by uniting. Beyond only foreign policy, we have to unite our economy, politically, and everything else culturally. So we need, and we are calling for establishment of FCDC. And actually, AU must create that task force, if possible, by the next year, so that we can start drafting a framework, because this is what Nkrumah said in 1963. Now, up to date, we are calling for that. We need also to build the capacity, invest in Pan-African Diplomatic Academy to train diplomats, even if there are thousands or whatever, we must start training diplomats, and funded by redirecting that 10% of AU members' contribution. We also call for counter-neocolonialism. So we use FCDC to renegotiate exploitative contracts and we increase our FDI, but also to promote unity, so that we can launch a cultural diplomatic initiative inspired by what Nkrumah tried in 1958 of AAPC. So there's very empirical urgency that Africa population actually is projected to almost 2.5 by that 2050. This amplifies the need for a unified diplomacy to secure resource influence. Without unity, Africa risks remaining unwilling and distressed prey of imperialism. That's what Nkrumah said. There's also issue moral imperative. As Nkrumah declared, we have the same awareness and the same anxious desire to make this Africa continent a free and a happy continent. And this FCDC will be the good step forward. I'll end it there. Thank you.
What about the conclusion?
My conclusion is on the call to action.
Okay. Do you know how long it took you to present?
I don't know if it's around 15 minutes or 15.
There you go. And you were complaining about time. Right. So the floor is open now for our next phase, which is interactive discussion. So we've heard from Brother Mafole, who has called, Brother Mafole, what do you call your program? Yeah, I know you have a terminology for it.
Building Ubuntu or civil learning communities.
So building civil links community.
Better called building Ubuntu communities.
Building Ubuntu communities. Okay. So that is Brother Mafole's program, which he wants us to roll not only in Africa, but that it will help us to help our diplomats to know who they are, and also to then speak on issues that happen, whether it is genocide in Israel, or whether it is the US coming to Congo to sign deals that only benefits them. And then we've heard from Brother Pigeon, who has also presented on the need for the Continental Diplomatic Corps and the benefits that we can get from it. Let's remind ourselves before we start the discussion that what we mean by diplomatic corps is basically a group of diplomats, ambassadors, envoys, and embassy staff posted to a foreign country or international organization. That is what we mean by diplomatic corps. And as you know, currently we have 55 groups of diplomats. What we are saying is that we want one group for the continent as a whole. And then what do we mean by diplomacy? Diplomacy, let's be clear, is the art and practice of managing international relations through negotiation, dialogue, and representation, not throwing 500-pound bombs on defenseless women and children. That is not diplomacy. So that is what diplomacy means, and that is what diplomatic call means. So Brother Pigeon asked a question. So let me answer that. Brother Pigeon's question was, does the AU have a diplomatic corps? The answer is that the AU does not have a single unified African continental diplomatic corps in the traditional sense, like a centralized foreign service. It does have diplomatic mechanisms and structures that serve similar functions. But the AU has what they call the Directorate of Political Affairs, Peace and Security, PAPS, and they kind of work as envoys. The AU has embassies abroad in New York for the UN, in Brussels for the EU, in Washington, D.C. for the US and the OAS, and then has one in Cairo, has them in Cairo, Beijing, Geneva, etc. And these offices engage in advocacy, partnerships, and multilateral diplomacy. So what Brother Pigeon then is saying is that we need to have a unified diplomatic corps. So those are the definitions and the facts. Sister Ida has her hand up first, so we'll listen to her, and then we'll listen to all of us one at a time. If you don't feel like speaking, please feel free to pass. Thank you very much, sister. Oh, by the way, I will go brother, sister in terms of how we speak. So we balance the voices. So, Sister Ida, can you start for us, please? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I always thought, to sort of semi-answer Brother
Sister Ida,
Pigeon's.
you seem to be far
Can you
away
hear
from the
me?
mic.
No, not really. Can you hear me better now?
Maybe others can. Yeah, go on.
Okay, I
At,
always
at
thought
least
that, or when I was younger, I should put it this way, that I always thought that the diplomatic corps, apart from those who went to different individual countries, was the UN. And I think they have a diplomatic corps that we used to hear about. So I presume that that's diplomatic corps, um, even though it might not be AU. You just said it's also AU, but I thought that that was what the diplomatic corps was, because I think there
sorry,
used to be.
sorry.
As
You
I
said
say,
I
I'm
said what?
probably wrong. Well, I
No,
can
it's
say I
okay.
was
No,
probably
it's
wrong.
okay. It's okay. You were saying, so I can clarify it for you, so you can continue.
I thought there was a diplomatic corps because you used
For
to
for
hear
who? For who? For
I
the
don't
AU?
know, but the name is not new. And so I thought that apart from individual countries sending their diplomats to other individual countries, part of the diplomatic corps was to do with the UN. And
Okay, okay,
hence
Sister
why
Ida.
there were UN
Yeah, it's fine. Brother
troops that
Isaac,
go
Sister
all
Ida,
over
can
the
I
place.
just clarify so you can continue? The current African governments all have diplomats. Yeah.
Yes.
The UN also, I don't know, may have diplomats. What the diplomats do, they negotiate, they solve problems through, as I was explaining. Um, hold on, hold on. So what diplomats do is that they uh, try and resolve international problems through negotiation, dialogue, and representation. So that's what they
Yes.
do. So
Yes.
the UN can have its own diplomats. Yes. So, but what we are talking about in this session is not that the word diplomatic corps doesn't exist. That's not the point here, because it does exist. This session is about Africa as a united nation. That is one Africa, not 55 different African states, but one Africa having a centralized diplomatic corps. So
I hear
already,
you.
as you know, we don't have one African nation in the first place, let alone having a centralized diplomatic corps. So that is what we are discussing. Thank you. Yeah, please proceed.
I hear you. I do hear what you're saying, but if that word has already been used, I don't think it is then that we'll be doing it justice to reuse it under different sort of trying to just put Africa, United Africa in front of it, because it's already. I sort of remember this being well used as a word, and I know what diplomacy means or diplomat means. I'm saying that I think it was used under the UN banner, is what I'm trying to establish here, because I think if it's already used and it didn't work under that banner, why are we then trying to use it under United African banner? Is what I'm querying.
So you are saying we shouldn't have diplomats? I don't understand.
It's a word, diplomatic corps is a word that's well established, it's well used. And I'm saying that if it didn't work under the UN or under diplomats for individual countries, maybe we should be looking at another way of coining this, what Brother Pigeon is trying to say. That's all I'm really saying, because I don't think you can reinvent the wheel. If it's already there, then we should be looking for another name to establish what he's trying to say.
Right. So since diplomacy is a European word, maybe we use our own African word then.
Maybe.
Brother Pigeon, what is the word for diplomat in Swahili? Maybe we should start using that word. Good intervention there. Brother Pigeon, are you with us?
Now, unless I look for it, because we only have ambassadors in Swahili.
Excellent. Please do, so that we can. Maybe we should start using that word. That's what Sister Ida is saying. And
but Brother Kwame,
yes,
the word diplomat comes from the concept of what is done diplomacy. Unless we are also changing diplomacy.
What is diplomacy in Swahili, brother? That's what we are asking. Look
Okay.
for it. You are the expert, diplomat, Swahili expert amongst us. So you find out and let us know. And maybe that is what we need to start using to differentiate it. It may be even related to Ubuntu to differentiate it from the language of the criminals. Thank you. Sister Ida, good intervention there. Let's go to Brother Sam.
Thank you, Brother Kwan, and everybody on the platform. Good evening. I think I have listened with interest the discussion that happened earlier, and I think personally, I was also of the view that we were discussing this matter on the basis that we are still not united. And if that is the case, then are we pitching this at the right position, or are we just saying this is our study for the sake of the group? Because for me, I would like, or I believe it should be a study about not diplomatic corps. The center should be foreign relations, because I see diplomatic corps as a subset of foreign relations. So why do we start at a subset instead of doing the whole policy foreign relations? So that is the problem I was having when I was listening to the discussion. And my view is that then if we start from foreign relations, have a common foreign relation, because this is exactly what is the trouble now. If the mother body is not united and having one single an entity running foreign relations, then the flow to the diplomat or the diplomatic corps will not be viable. Thanks.
Yeah, brother Sam, you make a very vital point there, and I think we did ask for presenters to present on the topic, and usually when we do, people don't come forward. Saturdays, as you know, brother Sam, they are not a study. They are us discussing an issue that is of importance to the continent, with the theme of unification. So, so today's session, was about foreign policy and diplomacy, and you are right that the presentations we've had, excellent as they are, should deal with the issue of foreign policy. So, so taking brother Mafoli's position, how would he frame foreign policy within that? And I think he's attempted to say that the foreign policy should be framed by people who know who they are. I think that's what Brother Mafolo is saying. That if you don't know who you are, if the continent doesn't know who they are, if the African continent doesn't understand the African continent in terms of who we are, how are you going to design a foreign policy that projects your African personality? Because if you know who you are, then we are using what in a way we are saying is that we are talking about the African personality, which overrides the individual cultural identities on the continent. Because as Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop said, there is cultural affinity across sub-Saharan Africa. Even though there are variations, culturally, Africans actually express a single cultural entity in that sense. And if that is the case, and we can understand who we are, then I think what Brother Mafolo is saying is that once we know who we are, we can then frame a foreign policy in line with that. And as you said, we can then retrain, as Brother Pigeon has said, we form the Pan-African Diplomatic School, as Brother Pigeon has said. And then in there, we start training new diplomats, on the foreign policy. So that is my understanding so far. And I think you are right to point out that when we are doing the presentation, we need to be clear that we are not framing the question of foreign policy and diplomacy based on the 55 African states as they are now, because it can't come across like that. And those who are doing the research should be mindful of that. Because when you go to do the research, unless your question is very clear, the response you get will not be what you are asking for. Especially in these days of AI. If you use AI and you're not careful, AI will tell you its own mind. And unless you are forthright and challenging, AI will tell you what AI wants to tell you. But you have to know what it is you want. So, brother Sam, thank you very much for drawing attention to that. So far, brothers and sisters, Sister Ida says, why we are even use the name diplomacy? And the way I understand it is, why don't we just find an African word and start promoting that? That's my understanding. And since Swahili is spoken by more people, why don't you look for the word diplomacy in Swahili? And Brother Sam is saying that the way we approach it, we should be mindful of it, that we must approach the question of diplomacy from the point of view of foreign policy first. That's a foreign policy of a united Africa. And then we can talk about diplomacy. So that's what we've heard so far from our contributors. Now, let's hear from a female voice now. So I go male, female, male, female. I said I learned this from Brother Glenroy organization because, so sometimes we forget that we need to balance masculinity with femininity, and we promote only one side. So, Sister Myra, shall we hear from you, please? Thank you.
Brother Kwame.
Sorry, Sister Myra, can you hold on? Yes, Brother Pigeon.
When you talk about policy and diplomacy, policy is a process of diplomacy. So policy cannot be different from diplomacy.
Yes, but you have to have a foreign policy first. and the diplomats then work on that foreign policy.
If you have a foreign policy, there's no need for diplomacy. So what you are talking about is create a foreign policy.
No, it doesn't mean that.
I've done international relations on diplomacy and policies.
Okay,
unless you are trying to frame it. Yeah, and Brother Usu is here. When you have a common policy, you don't negotiate about it. It's a policy, so there's no diplomacy in it. There's no conversation in it.
Okay.
Maybe the process of coming up with a policy is what involves what you call discussions, presentation, and those talks so that you have a policy. But once you have a policy, which I don't deny that Africa needs to have a common policy, once you have a policy, you don't negotiate around policy. It's very specific that our policy in terms of trade is this one, in terms of violence is this one, in terms of guns is this one. When diplomacy comes in is where you do negotiations.
So hold on. Since you're educating us, let's be clear. So I don't think what Sam is saying is that we must negotiate foreign policy. I think what he's saying is that a united Africa must have a common foreign policy. Yeah?
Now, when we discussing diplomacy or policy,
hold on. He's saying that what Brother Sam is saying is that the current 55 states have their foreign policies. But what we are discussing in CSG on our Saturdays are not the foreign policy of the 55 different states. We are envisioning a new African nation and it having a foreign policy. And the diplomats work based on this foreign policy. So that is my understanding. And you are saying?
No. In your envisioning, you don't envision in absence of the 55 current states. Because if the vision is derived from the current status that you have a 55 states, and you're envisioning on how you collaborate them to have a common policy. You can't say that you are envisioning one policy without taking into consideration that you currently, why do you need a common policy if there's no 55 states?
But that is a problem. That's what I'm saying, that the way, that's what Brother, see, this is what Brother Sam has picked up. The notion of common assumes that we are framing the policy from the current 55 states. And that's what Brother Sam has picked up. And that's what he's saying. And he's saying that we must frame it as a continental, not a common policy, not a common foreign policy, a continental foreign policy. And that's the difference. You see, this is what Brother Sam has picked up. And that's what I'm saying, that we need to be mindful of how we are having the discussion, because we are not here discussing Africa, the various African countries having a common foreign policy. We're not interested in that because they are all failed states anyway. Okay? And if they have foreign policies and they are common, it will still be a failed policy. We are not interested in that. In our Saturday meetings, what we are interested in is a unified Africa. And therefore, the foreign policy we are thinking of is a foreign policy that is predicated on a united Africa. And that discussion, that lack of clarity is what Brother Sam picked up and drew our attention to.
That Brother Sam is from South Africa. He's not a unified Africa. You are from Ghana. I'm from Kenya. We are African. But we cannot say that we are speaking of the Africa that does not exist. We want to go together there in a common continental policy, which means even if you're doing a build-up of something, you must take what you call a review of study of what is existing to build what you want. So that's where you realize the gaps that are existing. You realize what needs to be corrected to come up. You cannot come up with something from nowhere. There must be a baseline you use for you to come up with anything. And that baseline is from what is existing, for you to come up to what is common.
Yeah, but nobody has said that we should.
No, that's what you're trying to send. That's what you're trying to pass out.
Saying, brother, hold on. We are not saying we should invent foreign policy from thin air. Nobody has ever said that. I don't think anybody has ever said. Nobody so far has said, I haven't said we should invent foreign policy from thin air. We don't have a united Africa. Our Saturdays are about uniting us. And when we unite ourselves, it is we are uniting. It's the different African nations. We are saying that we don't want 55 African nations. We want one single Africa. And that's one single Africa should have a foreign policy. That's what we are saying. That's what the Saturdays are all about. Our Saturdays are not about for example, today, we are not here to discuss the foreign policy of the 55 African states, which are all failed states anyway. They are not meeting the needs of the African people. Brother Mafole, you recall, said said, for instance, that if you take the AES and what they are doing, they are trying to develop their people. The other Africans are criticizing them, saying they don't want anything to do with them. Now, in terms of the other African countries, that is for their foreign policy. So in other words, the foreign policy of Kenya is that it doesn't like what Traore is doing. Now, what kind of foreign policy is that? Brother Mafole, you wanted to come in. I had wanted Sister Myra to speak, so we balance the voices. But if you want to do a quick interjection, that's fine, and then Sister Myra can continue.
Oh, thanks. Very, very quickly. I'm just trying to put together what the other brothers and sisters have said, what Brother Sam and Sister Ida said. And we don't want to reinvent the wheel. But the difference that I think we should be looking to bring forward from what the Western diplomacy does. Western diplomacy focuses on consensus. Even when people dialogue, they want them to get to consensus, and there will be things like compromises here and there. When essentially what we want to be looking at is meta consensus, something higher than what either of the parties are bringing to the table. And I just wanted to say that I am thinking about it, and I'll write a short paragraph and share it tomorrow. I think I need to digest it properly.
Okay.
About the name that you were looking for, the naming of the process.
Right, brother Sam has put something in the chat, but I'll have a look at what they put in the chat. But I want to hear a female voice. And then, yeah, thank you, Brother Mafole, for that. Let's hear the voice of a female, and then we'll move on. Sister Myra.
Thank you, Brother Kwame, and thank you to the two presenters. Thank you for sharing that information. I'm going to respond to what Brother Pigeon has said from that angle. It's very interesting, and so he makes a good point. Yes, we have to work from what is existing, but then I thought the foreign policies that are existing, and by the way, yes, we do need a continental foreign policy, because when we are balkanized, we're weak. We don't have a voice. And if we're to build a continental foreign policy, and we start from where what we have now. What we have now, for example, allows foreign military bases to be on our land, and they can do. I've had. There was a video I watched which said that in Ghana there is a military base, and the owners of that land, our African brothers and sisters, that in the territory called Ghana, Brother Kwame's territory, are not allowed on that piece of land. In fact, the foreigners can do whatever they want. They don't need passports. They just fly in and out. Now that is part of our foreign policy. So if we were to sit and form a continental foreign policy, what do we do? Do we strike that out, or do we start from there and continue? You see. So we have to think about what we have now, the foreign policy that we have now. Where did it come from? Is it ours? Is it for Africa, or is it for the foreigners? We might find that we have to start from scratch, because we've never had our own policy that solves our own problems. I yield.
So, Sister Mara, you are saying what, that we might have to just start from scratch, from thin air.
Possibly. Of course, it takes case by case, but
okay.
I can't give you factual data, but if I imagine if I did research, I wouldn't be surprised that every line in every foreign policy of many territories on our Kebulan, it doesn't serve us as African people.
Well, I think we are all agreed on that.
So
even the current states are completely useless, and they are just wasting our time. President Museveni has a very interesting way of putting things. he keeps saying they just wasted our time. These will just keep wasting. They just wasted our time, and I would say the current states are just a waste of our time. They are not solving any problem. They are just creating more problems for Africans, right? So diplomat is Mwana Diplomasia. This is from the Sam, and ambassador is Balozi. Brother Sam, can you pronounce them so that it's on record how you pronounce them? Me, I am Ghanaian in it. Unmute yourself. Yeah.
I think Brother Pigeon will pronounce that better than me, but it's
this Swahili?
Yeah, it is Swahili.
Okay.
But
All
I
right.
got it from Google. One Diplomacia.
Okay, Brother Pigeon.
Balozi for ambassador.
Okay, Brother Pigeon, please have a look and let us know.
Yeah. I want to just mention that the word diplomacy, when Swahili borrows it to call diplomacia, is just coming from the word diplomacy, making it in Swahili. But what diplomacy, Swahili view diplomacy, is viewed as somebody who has some wisdom. So it views like wisdom carriers, people who are able to have some wisdom. So wisdom in Swahili is busara. So we view diplomats as people of wisdom who can negotiate and come with some harmony. Therefore, somebody will either call them people of wisdom in Swahili rather than a diplomacy. So when even call it mwana diplomacy, we'll still be borrowing English, trying to Swahilify it, which is still not correct way. So we need to find a proper one way that will be better. So I'll still do that research.
But before, do that research. But so you said wisdom is what? But what? Busara. So who are people? So literally, what would people who carry wisdom? What would that be?
We say mwana busara, a person of wisdom.
Okay.
We call it mtu wa busara. So we no, the Swahili tries to describe a word. So if you're talking of diplomat, Swahili is trying to describe what that person does to come up with a name. It's descriptive rather than just coming up with a name.
Right. Okay. So mwana busara. So Sister Wada, thank you so much. You're always intervening and helping us move forward. Thank you so much. This our ancestors are wise. Ancestors are wise. So Brother Benny Ususetre, he says that policy sets the rules and legalities. Diplomacy is the practice guided by the diplomacy, and the diplomat is the IR practitioner, and IR, I think, stands for international relations. Thank you, Brother Usu. Brother Usu, would you like to come in now with us, Sister Myra, and share your thoughts on the topic? Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Kwame, and the meeting conveners. Yes, I came in late. I was almost halfway. We're halfway through, but at least I can capture what actually you are deliberating on. Yeah, but what I put there as Brother Pigbin said that
Brother Usu,
he was trying.
Brother Benny,
yes,
it's pigeon, not Pigbin. Pigeon. That's how he wants to pronounce pigeon. Yes.
Okay. Pigeon.
Yeah, the B is silent. Thank you.
It's silent. Okay. So I think if we want to come with a unified approach to define some of these things, in fact, as I was lying down, all what my thought was going on is, I mean, we need to bring down all the government systems and then create new ones, which actually can put aside interest in favor of a common goal. And that is quite impossible at the moment, looking at how we are so much fragmented along lines of Western interest on this continent. Yeah. But the Swahili description as brother, is it pigeon?
Yeah.
Yes. It's fascinating to me, and it will be understood by an African who understands that word. Um, but then, can
Wisdom.
we create new terminologies altogether? Also, it becomes another way that English it's a language that they created a lot of words that were not even in existence, or sometimes they borrow from anywhere. So we can borrow Swahili and maybe some pitches and a little bit of Hausa into it, and then we get what we want. So, well, that is the little that I feel like I can add to this discussion. Yeah. But it is necessary because one thing is that Africa, we need to project ourselves as Africans from our languages and the way we live, our culture and everything. We have actually stand in our own way by whether to use the word to say that we pretend to be, but we are not. And it's a real frustration for our young people who see that when they join the other, go to travel to other places, and they see that children can define themselves, but they as Africans, they don't know where they belong. It comes from the fact that we shy from using what we have, and that is not helpful at all. It is keeping us backward. Yeah, and there is no ingenuity among us. There is no innovation also going on. Yeah.
Yeah, Brother Benny. So the word for wisdom, as Brother Pigeon said in Akan, is nyansan. So if we want to call diplomats with that terminology, we say nyansan jumayefo.
but I think
Sister,
he's going. There's something more which in fact I wanted to get the input of the whole the description of that Swahili. For me, I believe in the etymological studies of words. So when somebody mentions a word or name, I want to get the original source
yeah,
of it. That is
yes,
yeah.
yeah. So the guns will probably say Jomo Nuchumobi. Anyway, let's hear let's hear a male voice now, and let's hear from Ja Musa. Thank you. Ja? Okay, Ja doesn't appear to be ready. So Winnock has just arrived, so he'll probably need time to catch up with what we are discussing.
Please, can I ask the question, which is what is the Hausa word for diplomat? Thank you.
What he means, what Sister Ida, what he means, what Brother Benny means is that
I know what he means.
The word,
the word.
Yeah, the word for wisdom. You mean the word for wisdom?
No, for diplomat in Hausa.
Yeah, but what he was saying was that the word for wisdom, as for diplomat, as Brother Pigeon has explained, is what he would like. But anyway, Brother Benny, do you know the word for? Do you speak Hausa, and do you know the word for wisdom in Hausa?
Diplomat.
Yeah, diplomat. Right. Okay. I think Brother Benny maybe has not heard. Sean, is it Sean? I'm assuming Sean is a male. If not, please correct me. Am I pronouncing it right? Sean Mutumore. You've been listening for a while. Any commentary from you on the question of continental diplomats? Please unmute yourself and share with us. Okay. So silence from John, silence from Sean. So let me go to a sister. I know brother Glenroy says he's doing paperwork. Are you able to speak now, brother? I see your hand is up.
Yeah, yes, I really just want to agree with Sister Myra and her analysis that, maybe we need to throw it all away and start again. But I also think we should remember that diplomacy as a form of building relationship between nations has long existed on the continent. What has happened over the years, obviously, we've been told that this is the way to be diplomat. And what we were doing or had been doing, whether successfully or not, was considered inferior. So let's not say that we haven't been here. And obviously, pre-colonialism, colonial colonialism, we were not divided up as 55 nations. So if we desire to have a unified approach, and let's try and think of how we used to do it before. Of course, there were nations and divisions, but it certainly wasn't the division that we now face. Instead, also, and I think people need to look into this, foreign ministry, our ministers in the 55 continent are supposed to work together as other ministry. But we know it doesn't work because otherwise we wouldn't end up with 4 leaders or sub leaders going to Washington without presumably referral to the African Union. But that's another story. Let me not divert that. But I think, yeah, it is worth recognizing that what we have as representation of diplomacy for the purpose of negotiation is not quite what we need. Thank you.
But Glenroy, do you not think there's a contradiction in what you've just said, which is that you agree with Sister Myra that we might have to pluck it from thin air. But at the same time, you're saying that we've had something, our African nations have always existed, and that we did do diplomacy, but the terminology may have been different or was different. So in that case, it's not out of thin air after all. It's out of what we already have. Yeah.
But also recognizing that it has been undermined to the point that I don't believe you could find any nations that says this was the good thing about African diplomacy, pre-colonialism. So we anchor at what's the word? I think it's dining on ember. We can be nostalgic, but we need to recognize that there is another situation out there that we need to properly tackle. And I think the one of a unified Africa and a unified diplomatic corps is one we should be very clear that is what's required currently.
So I would then say that we might have to then pluck it from thin air after all, because whatever it was really didn't work. I mean, if it worked, Africa would have been united. So, Brother Pigeon, I'm sorry, we'll have to pluck it from thin air. Anyway, it's 5 minutes to 9. We have to bring the discussion to a close. Sister Shaza, would you like to say a few words, just so we hear from a female voice, and then we will hear the announcements. And Sister Shaza, thank you.
Yeah, greetings.
Greetings, my sister.
It's a comment and a question. I just think the term policy, we need to disentangle ourselves from using those awful colonial words, and perhaps use something like, I don't know, African incentives or something. I just think policies just have a negative connotation to it. And we just need to break away from those terms. That's all I have to say on the matter.
Yeah, I think that is an important part of our United Africa, that we need to really get rid of certain terminology. I mean, the word policy and the word police or police, we know that what police means, the violence, the oppression, the suppression. So thank you very much for that. So with that word of wisdom, Let's bring the meeting to a close. The time is 3 minutes to 9, and I will ask Brother Pigeon to make the announcements, and then we will close the meeting. Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you. Brother Colin, please just let me get the next topic in advance, and I'll request members at least to prepare something for the topics that we do have. Just when I say the notice, we prepare something small which you can present. It doesn't need to be a very extensive or a very big presentation, but just something will really help us as you formulate your thought prior to our meeting. That will really help us. I report that because so far we've been having our recordings as usual online, and we upload them. But we are also interested to hear the feedback from members, especially on what, at least we listen to our recordings and tell us what you think about them. We are always open for any report or any comments or any feedback. When we send our notification via the broadcast, feel free to respond, share your thoughts. What do you think is right? What do you think is wrong? What do you think we should adjust or something like that? But yeah, we look forward to meeting again on next Thursday for our Conscience Plus. We are at a very strategic stage. In fact, it's society and the ideology. So please join us if you haven't joined us. Please find time to join us. If you don't find time to join us, please also make some effort to listen to our recordings as well. We have members who join our Swahili class. It will still continue. We are almost towards the end of it. We are almost finishing that class. But join us as well if you wish to join us on that. Our library is still there also, Brother Kwame. For those who might request some books, like today we shared with almost our members books by Mandela. So if you still request some books that you want us to help you with or find it for you, feel free to always ask us. We'll always have those books for you. And yes, that's what I can say for now. And we look forward to have this recording for this week available next week. In case you have any proposals, feel free to reach out to us anytime. Thank you.
So the topic for next week, Brother Pigeon, is resource management.
Resource management.
Yes.
I think that's very important. And I will send the notification immediately to those who are not with us. But please look at it. We are looking in the African context, Brother Kwame, just to get that sometimes our topics are all around the unification of Africa. So
that's correct.
Whether they are speaking of resource management or the
youth empowerment, they are all
it's unification for Africa. So thank you very much for that sharing with us that topic. And as I've said again, we are open for conversation. If you wish to share any feedback with us, feel free. I've removed all members who haven't actually attended our class in our WhatsApp group, because that group is an extension of a discussion from this forum. So if you don't attend any of our forums, there's no way you can extend the discussion there. So we'll retain the members who are present and we will review that list. So please just join our class here so that we can extend our conversation in that group. Thank you very much and have a lovely evening to you all. Back to you, Brother Kwame.
Yeah, so brother, I think that is it. We thank everyone. You may stop the recording.